Why does silence feel louder after someone leaves? It's strange how everything continues. Cars pass, time ticks, phones buzz, and yet, inside you, nothing moves. It's as if something sacred has been broken, and the only thing left behind is an unbearable stillness. You're not alone in this. There's a kind of heartbreak that doesn't come with screaming fights or dramatic exits. It comes with unanswered messages, slow fading, and that terrible moment when you realize they're not coming back. You sit in the quiet, waiting for closure that never arrives. Not because they couldn't give it, but because they chose silence instead. And here's the strange part. Silence is what you fear the most after a breakup, but silence is also what will save you. In this video, we're not here to analyze the breakup or the person who left. We're going deeper, into the part of you that aches for a reply, that's still refreshing old texts, still wondering if it was your fault. We're going to sit with the silence. We're going to let it speak, because in the silence there is power, and if you can make peace with it, it will transform you. So if you've been abandoned, ghosted, forgotten, or quietly erased from someone's life, this isn't just a story for you. It is you. Take a breath. Let your shoulders drop. And if something in these words begins to stir what you've buried, stay with it. If you find yourself holding your breath, that's okay. Before we begin, if this space feels safe, consider subscribing or liking the video, not because you have to, but because you know someone else out there might need this softness too. Now let's begin. There is a moment right after the end when everything becomes unbearably still, not just around you but inside. You stare at the ceiling, you lie in your bed too long, you open the fridge and forget why, and even though no one says it out loud, you're grieving. You're mourning something that didn't die but disappeared. It didn't close with a slam but with a whisper, or worse, with nothing at all. You check your phone again, just once more. Maybe you missed a message. Maybe they're thinking of you, typing, deleting, unsure, but nothing, and still your mind goes on replay. Every word, every gesture. You dig through the past like a detective, piecing together signs. Did they stop loving you on a Wednesday? Was it the silence after your last I love you? Or was it earlier, long before you even noticed? You can feel your own desperation rise. Not just for them, but for the version of you that existed when you were loved. That version feels so far away now, like a stranger you wish you could touch. This is the storm before the silence becomes your teacher, because at first, silence feels like abandonment. But it isn't. It's a doorway. To you, you've spent so long trying to understand them. Their wounds, their patterns, their needs. You gave more. You quieted your voice. You softened your instincts. All just to be chosen. And now, here you are, alone. But here's the paradox. In being left, you were returned to yourself. That ache you feel, that's not just about missing them. It's your soul realizing it's been neglected, that you have a voice under all that silence, that there's a version of you who doesn't beg to be seen but stands still and is witnessed by her own heart. They didn't silence you, you silenced yourself. So they would stay. That's the part that hurts the most. But that's also where the healing begins, when you realize the silence isn't the enemy, but the echo of your own truth returning. It's uncomfortable because you've forgotten what your own voice sounds like when no one else is in the room. But if you can sit in this quiet long enough, not fill it with distractions, not chase closure, you'll hear something else. Not the sound of them coming back, but the sound of you coming home. There's a kind of power that comes from not speaking, not the kind rooted in revenge or punishment, but the quiet kind. The kind that holds dignity when everything inside of you wants to scream, "Please don't leave me." The kind that whispers, "I love you, but I will not chase what cannot see me." When someone walks away, especially when they do it without words, they expect you to fall apart. Not because they are cruel, but because they believe they matter more than they ever should have. And maybe they did. Because somewhere along the way, you taught them that your silence was weakness, that if they pulled away, you'd pull harder, that your love was desperation wrapped in kindness. But not anymore, not this time. This silence, it's not passive, it's defiant. It says, "I will not explain my worth to someone who was careless with my heart." You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because you finally understand that they weren't listening. You see, there's a moment when love becomes theater, where you're performing affection in the hope that they'll finally applaud. And when they don't, you double the effort. You turn your pain into poetry, your needs into whispers, your voice into something soft enough not to scare them. But all that effort doesn't bring them closer. It only exhausts you, because people don't stay for the noise. They stay for the truth. And when someone leaves you in silence, you don't need to scream to prove your pain. Let your stillness speak for you. Let the absence of your voice say what your words never could. Let them feel the weight of not having access to you. Because when someone walks away, it's tempting to fill the gap with one more message, one more explanation, one more desperate attempt to rewrite the ending. But real power is restraint. It's sitting with the ache and not letting it dictate your dignity. It's crying at night and still waking up to water your own plants in the morning. It's not pretending you don't care, but refusing to prove that you do. You can love someone deeply and still choose silence, not to hurt them, but to finally honor you. There's a part of you that still waits. Quietly, even after days, weeks, maybe months. You don't talk about it, not even to your closest friends. But it lives in the corners of your day, in the songs you skip, the streets you avoid. The way your heart clenches when a name like theirs flashes across a screen, even if it's not them. You keep telling yourself you're over it. And in many ways you are. You're functioning. You're smiling. You're even laughing sometimes. But healing isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. And sometimes, on the way up, you pass by the same ache in a deeper way. Silence doesn't erase your feelings. It invites you to feel them honestly. You sit with your pain not to romanticize it, but to listen to what it's been trying to say all along. That underneath the heartbreak is something more tender. The part of you that just wanted to be held. The part that hoped this time love would be safe. It's okay to miss them. Even if they were wrong for you, even if they hurt you, even if they never looked back. Missing someone doesn't mean you made a mistake. It means you cared. It means you were real. It means your heart didn't shut down to survive. And that's not weakness. That's strength most people never learn. But there's something else you begin to notice in the silence. A shift, a flicker of self-respect rising where there used to be shame. A moment when you read the old messages and no longer feel small. A morning when you wake up and realize you didn't think of them right away. This is not forgetting. This is returning. Slowly, you stop waiting for the apology that will never come. You stop crafting imaginary conversations in your head. You stop needing closure from the person who broke you open. Because silence gave you something better than closure. It gave you clarity. That they didn't leave because you were too much. They left because they couldn't meet you there. And the space they vacated? It's not empty anymore. It's yours, all of it. To be filled with things that actually feel like love, like peace, like self-trust. You no longer need noise to feel seen. You no longer chase people who confuse love with control. Your silence has become your sanctuary, a place where you no longer beg to be chosen because you've finally chosen yourself. Some nights are still hard. You reach for your phone without thinking, not because you want to send a message, but because you miss who you were when they loved you. There's a haunting in that version of yourself. The softness, the hope, the way you looked in the mirror and felt like someone's favorite. But now, the mirror feels quieter. You search your own eyes for someone you forgot how to hold. This is where most people go back. Not because they believe things will change, but because they want to feel something familiar. Even pain, when dressed in nostalgia, can feel like comfort. And your mind trying to protect you will whisper lies. Maybe they miss you too. Maybe they just needed time. Maybe if you reach out now, it'll be different. But you've heard this voice before, and every time you listened, it led you further away from yourself. Because the truth is, they never left in silence. They left in patterns, in the way they slowly stopped asking about your day, in the way they paused a little too long before replying, in the way they said I love you less like a feeling and more like a habit they forgot how to mean. You didn't lose them all at once, you lost them in fragments, and you blamed yourself for every piece. That's why the silence now is so hard. Not because it's new, but because it reminds you of every moment you ignored your own voice to protect theirs. You became quiet in that relationship too. You dimmed your light to avoid making them squint. You shrunk your dreams so they wouldn't feel insecure. You stopped asking for what you needed because you feared being too much. So when they finally left, you thought it was because you asked for something, but they were already gone. You just finally noticed. Now, this silence, it's different. It's not a punishment. It's not a void. It's not an echo of abandonment. It's your life. returning. And it comes gently, in the way you make your morning coffee just how you like it, in the playlist you build that has nothing to do with them, in the laugh that escapes your mouth when you're not performing for anyone. You begin to realize something breathtaking. You were never hard to love. You just loved people who didn't know how to stay. And your silence now, it's not loneliness, it's the sound of coming back to life. There's a quiet kind of liberation that begins when you stop explaining yourself. You stop replaying your side of the story. You stop trying to convince your friends that what you had was real. You stop needing the world to understand why it ended. And most of all, you stop needing them to understand what they threw away. You see, when someone leaves without words, they leave you with 1,000 questions. And every question is a cut, but you don't need their answers anymore. Because every day you choose silence, you stitch yourself back together, not in bitterness, but in boundaries. Not in resentment, but in reverence for the parts of yourself you used to betray just to feel loved. You learn to pause before explaining your worth. You learn to smile without rushing to prove how much you've grown. You learn that just because someone was a significant part of your life, it doesn't mean they were meant to stay. Sometimes they were just a mirror showing you where you abandoned yourself, and sometimes the silence they leave behind is the greatest gift they'll ever give you, because it forces you to ask a question you might have been avoiding your entire life. What do I sound like when I'm not trying to be loved? What do I want when I'm not performing? What kind of peace is possible when I stop mistaking chaos for connection? The truth is, some people leave not because they're heartless, but because your healing began to threaten their comfort. You outgrew the version of you who tolerated less, and maybe they could sense it. Maybe they knew you were becoming someone who wouldn't settle for almost, and instead of rising to meet you, they disappeared. It wasn't about your worth. It was about their readiness. You were becoming someone they could no longer manipulate with silence, so they left you with it. But now, it's yours. Silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've reclaimed the conversation. It means you're no longer available for half love, for breadcrumb affection, for relationships where you have to beg to be chosen. You walk away not loudly, not dramatically, but fully. And as you do, the silence follows you. But this time, it doesn't haunt you. It holds you. It becomes the soft space where you begin again. Not as someone broken, but as someone whole. You'll notice the shift quietly, not in a grand moment, not in a sudden wave of clarity, but in the smallest things. You no longer flinch when your phone lights up. You pass the places you used to avoid and don't feel your chest tighten. You see someone who looks like them from behind and your heart doesn't jump. It pauses just for a second and then keeps walking. This is how healing happens, not in applause, but in the quiet return to your own rhythm, because for so long your nervous system was tethered to their presence. You monitored their moods, their distance, their silences until it became normal to feel unsafe in love. And now, you are teaching your body a new language, one where silence doesn't mean danger. It means peace, one where being alone isn't a punishment, it's a promise. I will never abandon myself again just to keep someone else close. You stop craving the validation of the one who left because something inside you finally believes. I am not hard to stay with. I was just with someone who didn't know how to hold what was real. And maybe for the first time you let the grief breathe. Not rush it, not hide it. You let it exist without shame. You cry without needing it to make sense. You laugh on the same day you feel lonely and realize healing isn't clean, it's contradictory. And that's okay. You become softer, not harder, not because the pain didn't cut deep, but because you chose to remain open. You chose not to let someone else's silence become the blueprint for your self-worth. You chose to sit in the quiet and let it shape you, not shatter you. That is not weakness. That is radical courage. And eventually, the silence that once echoed with their absence becomes filled with something else entirely. Your presence, your voice, your decisions, your desires. You begin to speak again, not to be heard, not to be wanted, but because you have something to say. And when you speak from that place, when your silence has matured into self-trust, everything changes. You attract people who hear you the first time, people who don't confuse mystery with withholding, people who match your honesty, your effort, your depth. Because you no longer speak to be saved, you speak because you are already home. There's a moment when you finally look back, and it no longer hurts, not because it wasn't real, not because it didn't shape you, but because you no longer need to carry it like proof. You stop needing to explain what they did. You stop fantasizing about them returning. You stop replaying the version of yourself that was still trying to hold on to something that was already slipping away. And most surprising of all, You stop being angry because you understand now. They were never capable of giving what you needed. Not because you asked for too much, but because they were still learning how to hold themselves. And you were just the mirror. You reflected back everything they couldn't face. And even though they left, maybe they loved you the best they could. But you've learned to love yourself better. You no longer offer your heart to people who only love in fragments. You no longer confuse someone needing you with someone choosing you. You know the difference now. You've rebuilt your trust not in people, but in your ability to walk away when love feels like anxiety dressed as romance. You felt the difference between connection and survival, between intimacy and intensity, and now you crave peace over passion that burns too fast. You crave safety over sparks that leave you scorched. You crave consistency over chaos. This is the wisdom silence gives you, not all at once, but slowly, through the ache, through the quiet mornings, through the nights you couldn't sleep, through every text you never sent, through every tear that fell without witness. It shaped you. It brought you back to yourself. And that person, the one who now knows how to be alone without feeling abandoned, who sits with her emotions without numbing, who chooses herself without guilt, that person is not the same one who once begged to be loved. She's deeper now, softer, but stronger too. And if love comes again, and it will not feel like guessing games or emotional starvation. It will feel like recognition. It will not rush in, set fire, and vanish. It will stay, because now you know what leaving feels like. And more importantly, you know what returning to yourself feels like too. That is the power of silence. It doesn't fill the space. It becomes the space where truth grows, where self-worth roots, where you begin again not needing to be rescued, but ready to be met. Thank you for waiting, for holding the silence with me. Now, take a breath. This journey, this return to yourself, it didn't happen because someone stayed. It happened because someone left. And as much as it hurt, it gave you what nothing else could, a chance to hear your own voice. Maybe for the first time in years, you stopped begging to be understood by someone who couldn't even understand themselves. You stopped shrinking for someone who never grew. You stopped trading your peace for momentary closeness. And now, you live differently. Not louder, not harder, just more honestly. You know how to sit with yourself without flinching. You know how to cry without crumbling. You know how to love without losing yourself. That is rare. That is beautiful. And that is who you are now. So if they ever come back, and sometimes they do, they won't find the same version of you. They'll find someone who no longer needs their closure, their apology, their love, because you gave it to yourself. And maybe that's the most profound healing of all. The day you realize you no longer want them to reach out, not out of bitterness, but because your life is no longer a waiting room for their return. You are here now, fully, rooted, whole. The silence they left you with became the space you used to rise. And from that silence, something else has grown. A peace they cannot disturb, a love they cannot take, a version of you they never had the capacity to meet. And as you walk forward, gentle, steady, true, you carry that silence with you, not as a wound, but as a crown. Thank you for being here. If your heart feels lighter, or if something deep within you stirred, consider sharing this space with someone who might need it too. And if you'd like to stay connected to hold more of these soft, sacred moments together, subscribe to the channel, not out of obligation, but because healing is a path better walked with others who feel like home. Until next time, take care of your heart.